Arthur, thank you once again. Another episode here. It feels to me and you like it's the Sunshine Tour week.
It is the Sunshine Tour. It begins, yeah.
Yeah. Greatness begins here.
Correct.
That's actually our logo and slogan.
We'll just ride on.
We'll
this
just
slogan.
ride on that wave. But we've got Dylan Naidoo with us this morning. What an absolute pleasure and what an honor for us to sit down with you this morning, Dylan. And, you know, on that subject, what the Sunshine Tour has looked like, especially in the last 3 years, they've just been remarkable. And I'm excited that this is the foundation that they've set. So imagine what it's going to look like in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the players committee. I don't know if you guys know that.
We know, yes.
It's been really, really enjoyable being a part of that. You know, I get to see a little bit more than just the average player, what the ins and outs are, what the tournament schedule is going to look like going forward. And, you know, Thomas and Selwyn and everyone involved with the Sunshine Tour, they do a great job. Really, I mean, it's not easy to schedule these tournaments that they want. They've got sponsors who are interested in coming on board. They have to say, okay, we want you to do this, or they want you to do this. And the sponsor goes, no, I don't want to do that. And you go, okay, well, you need to, or whatever the situation.
Yeah.
It's not that easy to host all these tournaments. And, you know, the next season, there's also going to be some interesting things coming up. So they do a great job.
What is your role in the Players Committee?
So we don't really have specific portfolios. I think we are assigned specific portfolios, but for the most part, it's decision-making on some of the regs that are in place, how we're going to be allocating spots for international tournaments to. We do a lot of voting, a lot of discussion. It gets heated sometimes because essentially you're talking about someone's future. You know, you're deciding who's going to go to what event.
On behalf of the whole tour.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it has to be fair. That's that's the most important thing. That's what I always take into these discussions is how do we create an environment that is fair? Because you can easily manipulate those situations, you know? And what all the guys on the committee are great guys, and that's something that I wasn't really prepared for how well they were able to manage situations that sometimes involve them. You know, sometimes you're talking about one of the players in the committee, it's either him going or a different guy going to a tournament, and you have to vote, and he will say, this is a conflict of interest. I'm out of this vote, you know? So it's been very, very interesting. Yeah.
Why were you chosen to take that role on?
Well, so first of all, it was kind of in a volunteer space to begin with. So James Dupree is one of my good friends, and he was going to join the committee, and he said, I think you should join too. Like, I would like for you to come on board too. And I said, okay, how much time is this going to take, first of all? You know, is this going to take up days of my week, or is it going to be days of the year? You know, that's okay. He said, no, apparently it's not a lot of effort. Let's do it. I said, okay, cool. Let's do it. Great. If it's not going to be too much effort, I'm in. And it's been, honestly, the perfect amount. Like, it hasn't been too stressful for me. A lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't have to worry about doing all this stuff. Just focus on golf. But that is focusing on golf. That is the livelihood of players, of the guys who are involved with our tour. You know, if you're not being a part of the solution and you're complaining from the outside, then what's the point, you know? So it's been nice to be part of those discussions and being able to help whenever I can. So, yeah.
Well, it's also, there has to be some validity behind you. So in your own words, because everybody can Google all your achievements, we all have the apps, but in your own words, just tell us a little bit about Dylan, where it all started, and I'm doubling this, and then some of your greatest achievements that you believe you've had.
Okay, so I always played sport growing up. I played a lot of cricket, a lot of tennis, and a lot of golf, right? And I was kind of a kid who I wanted to do the thing a lot. I wanted to practice a lot. I enjoyed like getting better at whatever I was doing, right? And the problem with tennis and with cricket is you need someone to do the thing with you. You need someone to bowl to you. You need someone to hit balls with you, and you can only do so much without another person there. And golf was just the sport for me where I could just go there the whole day and I could go practice and enjoy myself. You know, I didn't need anyone else out there with me. So that was kind of where it got started. My dad brought me into the game, and I was okay growing up. I wasn't great until I was maybe about 14, 15. And then not for some reason, but, you know, it felt kind of miraculous at the time, I just became really good, really fast. And I won SA Boys under 17, which for me at the time was like, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm one of the good players now. Like I'm one of the kids who can actually do something in this game, you know? I won that, started getting selected for some of the national teams, and then won SA Boys under 19 stroke play, which was, that was cool. That felt really good to do that. And after that, you know, I had a lot of colleges who were interested in me, deciding where I was going to go, eventually committed to University of Arkansas.
Why?
It was at the time, it was between basically three places, where the three places I was looking at was Stanford, Texas, and Arkansas. Those were the three universities I was looking at.
Those are
Big choices.
Yeah,
choices,
it was
Dylan.
difficult. It was a difficult.
I mean, Stanford is related to Tiger Woods.
Yes.
So now let's go where Tiger Woods was at. University of Texas Longhorns.
Yes, the Longhorns. Yeah.
Let's follow Dylan Fratelli and Jordan Spieth. You know what I'm saying? Let the Dylans go to University of Texas. That is a difficult choice. So let's hear that.
So at the time, I was my sports psychologist Theo Bezadenot. I came to him and said, "Look, I want to go. Like, do you have any advice? Do you know anyone who would be interested? Whatever." And he recommended Texas Christian University and Stanford. And I had kind of a brief discussion with Texas Christian. Didn't really work out. But I went to go visit Stanford, and myself and my dad, we flew in. I played a tournament at Torrey Pines, which was quite cool, and they came to watch me there. And then from there, we flew to Stanford and went around the campus, met a bunch. We actually met Maverick McNeely that week, which was quite cool.
Oh,
right?
cool.
And he was still in college. He was the #1 player at the time in college, so that was cool. And we just had a chat with him, and kind of what's a bit tricky about the university scouting process is you don't really know how much scholarship they have until they tell you how much they have. And that can happen much later in the process than you would like, And at the time at Stanford, they were sharing the scholarship evenly in the team, right? And so it's 65% scholarship.
I got you.
That's still R1 million that you're spending in the 40%, So as much as that was, a really nice opportunity, I just it didn't feel like the right thing to do when I had, Texas and Arkansas offering me full rides, So went to Stanford, had a really cool experience there. Then from there, we went to University of Texas to go to Austin and check out the campus. And we spent like 3 full days with Coach Fields, who's a really great guy. We had such a nice time. And it was actually during Jordan Spieth's run, where he had won the Masters and the US Open in that same year. And we were there on the final day of the British Open, where it was him, Louis, and I think, did Zach Johnson win? Was that St. Andrews?
Was not Molinari?
No.
Okay.
2015, I think, or 2016. And it was at St. Andrews. And coming down the stretch, Spieth was like 1 shot off the lead. So we were sitting in his office watching Spieth come down the last few holes, with Louis also in the playoff too. It was Louis, Zach Johnson, and Mark Leishman in the playoff, right? And that was a really cool experience, because you're sitting with the guy who's watched him, play college golf, become this great player. And he's like kind of talking you through what he's thinking over each shot. So that was really, really awesome experience,
You didn't chat to Dylan about University of Texas?
So I remember sending him a message on Facebook and he never replied. So I mean,
he's an
what
Instagram guy.
He's
an Instagram guy.
He went on the wrong social handle.
Went on the wrong platform.
So the way we got in touch with Texas was through Brandon Stone. Right? So I played a practice round with him at Joburg Open in 2015, and he was like, "Dude, we gotta get you set up. Like, I know you want to go. Let's get this show on the road. Like, we'll get Fields in contact with you and see how it goes." And so that was cool. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about the scholarship situation, but I guess I'm going to, because it's so many years after. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything now. They offered me a full, but my first year was dependent on whether Bo Hosler turned pro or not, whether I was going to get a full in my first year. So it was like 50% in my first year if he didn't turn pro, and 100 if he did turn pro, and then 100 for the rest of the years, right? And so that was, that's a tough situation to be in. I don't know Bo. Like, I can ask him, "Are you going to turn pro? What's he going to do? Is he going to tell me or not?" Like, it's a bit of a weird situation. So had that tabled, and And then from there we went to Arkansas, right? And before I went, I almost told my dad, we don't even have to go. Like, I'm going to choose Texas. Like, why would I choose anything else? Like, I know this is the pathway. This guy's seen, like, South Africans come through. Like, he's worked with, so Brandon worked with Llewellyn, my coach, for a long time. And so while he was at college, like, Coach Fields knew Llewellyn well. So it was just like, okay, well, this is perfect. Like, let's do it, you know? And then we flew to Arkansas and we landed, and it's like, the airport is in the middle of like a farm. Like, you go there and you're like, what am I doing here? What is this place? You know? And they picked me up from the airport, and before, when I was playing the tournament at Torrey Pines, the coach from Arkansas walked every day, all 4 days. I think my tee off time on the one day was like 6:20. He was there on the first tee. He walked.
Are they Division 1?
Yeah, they're good. I mean, we were top 15 in the country every year, so we were a good team too. Got there and, you know, met up with a couple of the guys on the team, and we played a round of golf. It's a bit different with fields because it was so you get an unofficial and an official visit. Those are two very, very different situations. The unofficial, you have to pay for everything. So he's not allowed, the coach is not allowed to pay a cent for you on your trip, right? And the official, they roll out the red carpet for you. Like, that is the opportunity for them to show you what their university is about, right? And so I got there. We immediately played golf, which I hadn't done in Texas. We just walked a few of the courses. So I was very eager to play. It felt good. Played with like a few really good players who are now actually on the PGA Tour. Taylor Moore and Nico Echeverria, who are both on the PGA Tour, good players. And I remember thinking, like, they're good, but like, I can roll with these guys.
I
can give them a go, you know?
The confidence booster.
Yeah, we played, and I remember, like, immediately after the round, like, Coach McMakin immediately called them in, and like, I could tell he's trying to gauge what they think of me as a player too, and to decide what type of scholarship offer I'm going to get, you know. And so they obviously went in, came back, and said, listen, we're willing to offer you a full ride plus some. Like, it was like quite a nice offer, you know. Showed the importance that I was going to play in the team. And I went back home, and, you know, 2 weeks later, thought to myself, like, at the time I said, I'm not sure if I'm even going to make this team in Texas. Like, I'm going to be part of the team, but am I actually going to travel? Like, these guys are bloody good. They're the best in the country, you know. Not that Arkansas was any worse. I mean, they're top 20 in the country too at the time, so good players too. But Coach McMakin had said to me, listen, you're going to be the guy. You're going to travel to every event. You're going to be our number one player, and we want you to succeed in every way possible. You're not just going to be a number. You're going to be the guy, you know? And at the time, that was really important to me. That's what I didn't really want to get wrapped up in the system and just lost, you know, which was, you know, that's happened to a lot
of
people. Exactly. So in the end, that's why I chose Arkansas. You know, it was a whirlwind experience when I went. I was there for 2 years. I didn't do my full 4 years, but it was, I still have friends there. You know, I still have people who I consider family, you know, very, very far away. But, you know, it's an experience I'll never forget. You know?
Why only 2 years? Why? What happens in that?
So through my first semester, I was playing pretty well, and I just noticed like a gradual decline in my game, just slowly kind of not going quite the way I wanted to go, which was very frustrating because I got to campus and I was pretty much the number 1 or 2 player on the team immediately because I was good. When I with college, I was a really good player. And like, you play okay the first few events, and I'm thinking, okay, like, I'm getting used to everything. You know, I'm happy with where I'm at, but I still want to push forward. And I just slowly start to lose some of the technical aspects of my game. You know, being really far away from a coaching team is difficult. It's really, really tough. And as that second semester went by, I could tell my coaches were also getting frustrated with me because I wasn't really working with them. I was still working with Lou back home, you know, and I could see this kind of tension happening between the two of us, or the two groups of people already. And then I ended up getting injured too. My hip kind of gave out on me a little bit, and that was really frustrating. And at some point, I said to myself, "Listen, like, you can keep going with this, and I'm sure I would have found a way. You know, in a different life, I would have done all 4 of my years, and I would have figured it out. I was I was strong enough as a person to make a plan. But it just felt right to come back home. I felt like it was the right time. I felt like if I kept on pushing, I could have lost my career in golf, and that was always what I wanted to do. So, yeah.
And now, sitting back now where you are, good decision?
I think so. I think it was, there are two decisions that I think were pivotal, like really important at that time in my golfing career. And one was to leave, and two was to turn pro when I turned pro. The period between when I turned pro and when I came back, it's a bit murky. Like I didn't feel like I had enough motivation to push on and make the South African teams again. I'd done that already. Like it didn't feel as inspiring anymore to do that. And professional golf was something where I was like, okay, like every shot is going to count again. Like it's all going to matter more than it's ever mattered before. And I wanted that, and then when you start playing pro golf, you realize how important every single shot actually is. And so it becomes like a mad dash to get better, to improve all the time. And that pressure to improve has really helped my golf game. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your support structure. I mein, you've been with Llewellyn since a young age.
Yeah, since I was 14.
And why Llewellyn? I mean, listen, we all know how special he is. I've got a relationship with him too, and he's also, we both share a local club. But why?
It's a good question. One of my good buddies at the time was Marco Steyn. Okay, fantastic player. He went to Wake Forest and played college golf there. And we were 13, 14 years old, and I was like, this guy, he's pretty good. Like, I want to do what he does. And so I said, okay, let me go see your coach. And that was the beginning of the relationship. It was nothing super special in the beginning. It was just like, he's pretty good. I want to do what he does. Let's go check out this guy. And immediately, like, it was a very different experience to the coaches I'd been with before. Lou's a very structured guy.
Yeah.
He's very methodical, very analytical, and that was something that really suited me and who I was as a player and who I am as a player. And so he's been just such a good mentor to me as a person. I mean, there were times in college where I remember calling him basically in tears a few times, being like, like if I was to come back, like, when would we get started? He'd be like, you get off the plane and you can come see me straight away. Like, we'll get to work. Don't worry, And so he's been such a good mentor figure to me, along with a lot of other guys on my team.
So Arthur and I always say, and when we, thought about getting you onto the show, we always said you play a bigger role than just golf. Dylan, where does that come from? And what is your vision? And are you seeing things that you hold near and dear to your heart? Are you seeing things move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that before we started recording, Arthur was talking about my win at Mhlali, and the fact that in my speech I mentioned the fact that the last player of color to win was Toto Timba in 2019, and that was my first year on tour. It was within 3 months of me turning pro, and that was so inspiring for me. I mean, Toto's a great guy, and he's always had that that leadership element to him that I've really appreciated. And it's something that I've always aspired to. Growing up, I've always felt like someone who can lead, who can inspire other people going forward. And to have won as a player of color, I thought it's really important to mention this. It's important that this gets recognized for what it is. Especially in Durban, where Papua Sugolum was such a legend and such an iconic person. And every time I go to Durban, I really do feel like his spirit and the person that he was there. So I hope that I can do a little bit to inspire someone. If I do even the tiniest little bit, that's better than nothing. So
yeah, we think that's a remarkable role to play, and it's something that we also in South Africa. It's not always near and dear to everybody's heart, but it's something that moves the game forward. And also, if you look at some of the other sports like rugby, especially, how that moved the game forward in an incredible way. And what it did was it brought viewerships out of places that was never watching rugby, and there was a stigma about it. And of course, we're talking about Sia as a massive moving point in that. But that's always what we say. If you look at it from a whitey perspective, if a guy of color takes on a sport, they normally become the best at what they do in the world. I mean, that's across tennis, that's across the cricket, that's across golf, and That is absolutely incredible because it always feels like it's a different fight, you know?
So what Albert's trying to say is you need to be the next Sia Khaleesi of golf.
So that's
Yeah,
it's a big ask.
Yeah, well, it's a big ask, but I think we've got the talent to be here.
No, 100%.
You know, to do it. And the Indian community, especially, I mean, golf, the role that they play in golf is absolutely incredible. And especially when it comes to raising funds. You know, people, and this is a real stat. Golf is one of the largest raisers of charitable cash in the world. And there is so many names that play a massive role in that, in all the different various clubs. That's fantastic, Dylan.
100%, yeah.
That you play that role. But does it come from your father?
I think it's I'd say coming from an Indian household, you know, I think any person of color, you know, you come from these households where politics is is a very important part of how we grow up. You know? My dad's first memory growing up is of him living in a tent for a couple days when he was forced out of the home that he previously lived in. And when you talk about it, it sounds very emotional or very difficult to deal with, and it was, I'm sure. Like, you know, we grew up, or I was fortunate to grow up in a house where I didn't have to experience any of that. But this is such a recent thing in our history as South Africans. It's not like it's 300, 400 years ago. It's really recent. So the effects are very, very clear. And I guess I've always been someone who has, I did a minor in politics in university while I was there for the 2 years. So I've really enjoyed politics. It's something that's important to me. You know, my first year in college was when Trump was elected. So that was also something where I was like, okay, well, how did this happen? What were the factors that created this situation? It's not always just what it seems. There's something that's underlying behind this, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, that's all I can say, really.
And I tell you what, this is obviously a joke you should know about, but in the riot times in Durban, we all now know not to fuck with the Indian community in any shape or form. I think everybody stood up, but they have played a very important role right around the world. And if you look at Gift of the Givers, Dr. Suleiman, I listened to one of his podcasts the other day called Fix SA. And it was just amazing. You know, he started this in his garage. And one of the things he said right in the beginning is that there is no culture, creed, color, or anything that's going to stand in my way. Wherever the need is, we're going to provide. And we're going to do it with the best of intention. Now, if you look at that support structure that he's got behind him, I mean, he's certainly one of the most influential people in the planet. You know, and if you know and understand charities, those are the people that can call any president in the world. Yeah. Any president in the world, where organizations and corporates don't have that type of access. And he said, you know, we are so far from losing hope on SA. And let me tell you what, as a small businessman, that gives me hope. You know, that somebody that sees what he sees is still seeing the hope that we all sometimes lack to see or want to see. Yeah. Now, Dylan, so you want to do it by action in what you want to lead on. And yeah, the reason I say that is because let's just talk about some of the achievements you've had in golf, because you sit here with a lot of credibility. But what are those special times and that you remember on the tour that changed it for you and it validated your journey?
I think there's been a few. I think that going from playing in South Africa, you know, I felt like my first real achievement on tour was at the Daniel. I think I came 25th or 24th, somewhere around there. And in the third round, I played with Charles. And I mean, when you see that level, when you understand or when you witness it up close, how good a major champion is, it is different. And one of the things that I find that inspires people to become better at what they do is when they witness greatness in front of them. When they see what it looks like, you want to emulate that. You want to be a part of that, you know? And I mean, his ball striking with his iron play is close to Tiger Woods. Like, it's that high level. You don't quite understand until you see him talking about the wind, until he's talking about the shot that he's trying to hit, and then hits exactly the shot that he's trying to hit, and you're like, bro, that's insane. That's unbelievable, you know? So that was the first moment where I was like really and truly stepped out of a small world mentality of like, okay, I need to make the cut in this event. I really need to play well here. And it did take a lot of pressure off me because I was into the top 50 for the next season. And that was, that makes your life a lot easier. You're into all the big events. You can just plan your schedule a bit better. So that was the first moment. And I think the next year or so was a lot of small steps to improvement. We had the COVID year. And during that time, it was an important time for me to experiment, see who else I can add to my team, who are just trying to level up the total system that I'm bringing to the tournament, and I brought on 2 guys who have been great. Worked with them online for about a year. One guy in France, and another guy in the US. And then
Is that mental capacity? What
it
are
was
they?
a strength trainer and a
Okay.
guy for short game
Okay.
who I'm relating to. So it's Devin Brown from One of a Kind Fitness and Robin Koch, who's a short game and long game specialist. Great coach. And bringing on 2 new faces kind of gave me a little bit of extra oomph, gave me a little bit of motivation.
Purpose.
Yeah, gave me a little bit more discipline and
Accountability.
reason to improve. Robin works with a lot of guys on the European tour, and so when he's giving me stuff to do from a performance point of view, it's like, mate, this is not just stuff just that I'm giving you for fun. This is to improve you to get to the level where we want to get to. You know, it's not just let's aimlessly do this and then give me feedback and tell me what you think. It's like, I've got my guys who are finishing top 5 in Rolex events doing the exact same thing and explaining to me and giving me feedback on it. So there is a real purpose to what we're doing, So
This year for the tour, what have you got in mind that you need to achieve this year? And then ultimately, where is it that you want to see yourself?
So I think that I'm right now 34th after Dimension Data.
Yeah, I saw this morning.
Back. I think a good goal that is achievable, but that is going to push me is top 20 in the order of merit.
Yeah.
And that's going to give me the chance to go to a few second stages, a few final stages in Q School. What's nice is last year I went to European Tour Q School, and I have some status on the Challenge Tour for this year. So I'll play out as many events as I can get into for that as well. So the opportunities are there. It's just sticking to what I'm doing, following the plan that's in place. I'm a bit of a Sherlock Holmes. I like to go, yeah, okay, but like, what's the problem here? What's going on? No, there is no problem. Just work harder. Just do exactly what you're doing over a consistent period of time, and the results will show. I like to be like, no, but I can do this more effectively. No, it's already very effective. Just do more of it, and you'll see the results.
Shaman, I'm sorry to just go backwards there a little bit, but you said, that you found inspiration from, my word, you played with him?
Charles.
That just stuck with me now, because it's like what you say, you never know who's the inspiration that everybody gets from these guys. And I suppose it's the same role that you're playing, Dylan. You just don't know who else you're influencing and who's taking up the sticks the next morning to say, I want to go and be Dylan. And that's also why it's so important. We spoke to Dylan, where he didn't say it was a mandate, but that's why he feels it's so important to always come back and play on the tour here, because it is. When you see that guy training, warming up, it's just like, what is going on here? And then if you put him against a few other Oaks, and I'm not calling any standouts, but he does look different. And we said it with all the podcasts that we've had and all the wonderful guests like Eric van Looyen and Sean Norris and Dylan Fatelli and Skalk Brits, which is not particularly on the golf side, but their mentality, you can see the difference. We analyzed it the other day. If you look at the way that those guys operate, it's on a different level. And I just want to add on to that, where there was on Peniel's podcast the other day, somebody said if South Africans really want to open up their views, is get a passport. Because it's like you said, the world opens up to you. Like, what is this? I've never seen this. And when you travel, that's exactly what happens. I normally come back far more appreciation for what we have, regardless of the challenges we face as a nation.
So one of the, if you ever travel with me or you ever come to dinner with me, at some point you will hear the speech that you must be, I say it in more explicit terms, but you must be very, very good at golf. If you want to make a career out of this, you can't just be okay. You need to be unbelievably good. The difference between a good Sunshine Tour player and a good player on the European Tour is exponentially big.
It's huge.
It's massive.
I can listen.
But in what way?
So
help us out as amateurs. You guys know what you're talking about.
Okay, no disrespect to the Sunshine Tour players, but obviously being contracted to the Sunshine Tour and some European Tour events, working on the range with the players, when I was at the $1 Million, the ball striking, because I mean that's the top 50, top 60, I can't remember, in the race to Dubai, is huge. Then the next week you go to, let's call it a Joburg Open, and you've got the Sunshine Tour players there and the guys that pre-qualified to get in. And there's a huge difference. And I say this with the utmost respect. Like, it's night and day difference. You don't even have to watch the ball. You can just listen to it. And then the other thing, which I think you fall into this category, is the discipline. The discipline on those players is huge. From getting onto the range to warming up. Not warming up hitting lob wedges, warming up their bodies, you know, and then following their processes and their routines and purpose-driven exercise, if you had to call it, to get ready for the week. Like, you go to the Sunshine Tour events, and no disrespect, I've got so many mates on the Sunshine Tour, and I'm not saying this out of disrespect at all.
Sure.
So they go onto the range and they just go through lob wedge, 9-9, 7-9, 5-iron, hybrid, 3-wood driver. Okay, I'm going to go tee off my practice round now. It's like, what purpose did you get out of today? Was it distance control? Was it shop shaping? Was it fixing in a drill that you had? Like, I respect Dylan a lot, not because he's sitting in this chair, because of the purpose-driven exercise that he does. Super consistent, super disciplined, and I would back him if I had to bet money every week.
Thank you.
Like, not because you're sitting, but this is a job. This is, like you said, you have to be good. You cannot be average at this game and make a career and go places.
But sorry to interrupt you. No. One of the things that you touched on that I want to emphasize even more is the fact that anyone can do the things that they're doing. It's not difficult to do it. It just requires a little bit of concentration, a little bit of awareness beforehand, a little bit of planning and scheduling. That doesn't take, I mean, a monkey can do that. A monkey, if you told a monkey to schedule what he's going to do for the next day, he could do it. It just takes that little bit of extra effort. A guy who, again, if you hear me at dinners whenever we're on tour, I think he's going to be unbelievable, is Jung Woon Ko. I don't know if you've seen the name before. French
I have
guy.
not.
French guy, okay? He played on the Challenge Tour last year, okay? And the year before, I think. When we get to golf tournaments, he does the exact same thing every single time. He gets there, he has his aim point set up, he does his calibration, he gets his caddy involved, they check where his putter's aiming. They do the exact same thing every single time before he plays a round of golf. And guess what? He's on the European Tour this year.
Yeah.
Because it just takes a level of commitment to the process. And it sounds like an easy thing. It sounds like something that anyone can do, but it's not.
It's not easy.
But I just want to say, when we say the Sunshine Tour is the organization that puts the event up, that's got nothing to do with how much effort you put in.
Of course not.
Of who comes onto the field, you know.
100%.
And Arthur, I can tell you now, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your view in life, that's across any industry. You're going to get guys that's going to put in this much effort for the day, and you're going to have people that put in this much effort for the day. And if you look at even on the Sunshine Tour, the ladies, you know where the hard workers are, and it's reflecting in what they're doing at the moment. So I personally think it's a very good message that we need to say, as South Africans, when you go and travel overseas, some areas you'll come back and you'll go, shit, we do this really well, better than they do. But in a lot of areas we'll go, that's why they are who they are. Because we think a certain way sometimes. So I think it's a great message to say everybody needs to level up.
But here's the thing, coming from an ex-Sunshine Tour player, it's so hard to figure it out while you're in it.
Yes.
Because there's so many, I would say, formulas and links and pieces that you're trying to put together. And where do you start? And like, this is not coming from experience. Like, I was a world beater. Please, I'm not saying the guys on the Sunshine Tour are shit.
Well, Eric says Dylan is a world beater.
Yes, I'm not saying, because they are super good. Okay, but we're talking about.
So one of the things that I really value is the idea that you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your systems that you put in place. And I think that's important for people to
Albert, write
understand.
that down. We
He
need to
just,
tell the
I mean,
team.
he just said
You
it. They see
need
the
to write that.
intelligence, the intelligence just came through.
Because what I like to think about my ceiling as a golfer and my floor as a golfer. Those are two very different things to look at, right? When you look at your ceiling, it's your talent level, it's your ability to hit the incredible shots that no one else can hit, right? But your floor is what actually determines the level that you play at. So if your floor is 76, 77 on your bad day, and your stroke average then goes to 71.5 or 72.5, mate, you got no chance. You're going to stay at the level that you're at right now. What can you do to make your floor better? What can you do to increase the level of your worst golf? That is actually the difference between the best golfers in the world and the worst golfers, and not the worst golfers, the guys who are average on whatever tour they're at, who can keep their card but can't really push on to the next level. Is how do you create? And someone will probably call out the fact that you can win twice and miss every other cut for the rest of the year, and you'll probably then level up to the next tour. If you're on the Challenge Tour and you win twice and you miss the rest of the cuts, you could probably get to European Tour card even still. But how do you do this consistently for a living? How do you live with yourself if you go 2 wins for the year and then miss every other cut? How do you go to sleep at night? That's difficult. That's so tough.
How do you wake up the next morning and say, right, I'm either going to win twice or miss the cut? It's going to get to a point where it's going downhill.
Yes. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying.
And so, like, when I look at my stats, when I look at my trends, I don't look at one tournament at a time, because that is only a tiny sample size of what a season holds for you, right? So I'll look at 3-month increments, 6-month increments, and then from there, put in place stuff where I say, okay, this needs to improve. How are we going to improve that? This is the number I'm trying to achieve for that. Have I achieved it? Yes, no. Where do we go from here? Like, unless you do that, you're just going to blindly keep on doing what you're doing anyway. So,
Well, we always go past it. You watch all these wonderful Netflix series, documentaries that you see, which I think is just incredible for whichever sport they're doing it in at the moment. But we go past the real answer. If you look at the Michael Jordan documentary that was out, all the achievements, all the wonderful things, but if you really just dive into it, he was the hardest worker between all of them.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
But and
As simple.
I saw Fratelli say the same thing, and I agree with him. It's not just hard work.
Yeah.
Yes.
It needs to be effective work.
Yeah.
It needs to be smart hard work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I see guys who beat balls. There's many guys who beat ball and who beat thousands more balls than I beat. It doesn't mean that they're getting out of it what they're trying to get out of it. I can do an exercise that takes me 20 minutes on the range, whatever performance drill I have in place. I'm getting a boatload out of it, even though I'm not there for 3 hours. I can be there for 3 hours. I can put the work in. I'm not afraid of it. But if you can be effective with it, that's much better than being the hardest worker, And that's what shows when you look at the best guys in the world. They're really smart. They have really smart people around them.
Correct.
One of the two, and I'm hoping that eventually I can get to that level.
When you talk about these guys on percentages, golf is one of those where it's like you in single digits realm.
Yeah.
If I have to now take all the tournaments that Dylan has started at versus what he's won, then you think, yeah, Dylan, but then you look at the same thing in the Tiger Woods, and you do the same thing in the Phil Mickelson, you do the same thing with the Tiger Woods, the Ernie Els and the Louis Oosthuizens. I mean, they're all single-digit percentage winners. And some of them, it doesn't fall even into a 1% digit.
It's 0.5.
It's like 0.5% of what they've done. And if you take it over a career path, the stats. So I'm saying that it's now a point where intelligent, you have to be intelligent as well, because you have to take a deeper look at this and go. And that's for me, just hear me out with sons and daughters, whatever they want to pursue. I'm just also saying, if you're going to approach it where you're like, oh, Dad, it sounds so wonderful, I want to go play golf, or Mom, or whatever it might be, really sit down with your kid. Say, listen, we will support you whatever you need to do, but you have to understand what you're up against here and what type of work and sacrifice is going to require you.
So there's a lot of guys on tour who come to me for advice, right? Guys who are struggling to keep their card or are really good players too.
Yeah.
And want to pick my brain and, get certain ideas. It's a tough situation to be in, first of all, because we're playing against each other.
Yeah.
Like, and I must just do this for fun. Like, I must just give you my insider info. But
Here's
anyway,
my banking details.
yeah, exactly. Honestly, there's a few times where I'm like, no, it's okay.
Because it's mostly out of love, but I'm sure there's one or two people you're like, okay,
Well,
buddy.
there's a few guys who I've sat down. Okay, Carl Barker, he's my
Yeah.
good mate,
Yeah.
and I love him to death. He sat down with me 2 years ago, and we went into some of the statistical stuff. And then all of a sudden, the guy's playing great, and I'm like, I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for him. He's my good mate, but I'm like, oh, like I should have been asking for a percentage here or something.
Rebate.
You know?
You see, rebate,
Yeah.
Dylan.
So, but the reason I bring this up is that
Sorry, it's his birthday also today. Is it yesterday?
yesterday.
Yesterday. Happy birthday, Carl. Sorry.
So he there's a lot of guys who come to me for advice, but not a lot of guys will actually take the advice that I give them. The first thing I say before I say anything else is, do you keep stats? No, I don't. But on the 17th hole yesterday, the wind was off the right and I didn't like the shot. I'm like, dude, just tell it to someone else.
Yeah.
I have no interest in your anecdotal one shot that you hit.
Yeah.
It means nothing to me. I can't. How can I give you real like feedback and good analysis on what you're telling me on one shot? It means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
We play golf for 72 holes per tournament over 30 events a year. What does one shot mean? It means very little.
Yeah.
So I tell them, do stats. Okay, cool. 6 months later, Dill, I really want your advice on this. Did you keep stats? No. Okay, well, I'm not going to help you anymore.
Yeah.
I have no interest in giving you any type of feedback.
But it's the
anymore
right thing to
because-
say to them because otherwise you're just enabling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and so we're talking about guys who are, people would call them successful golfers, who are professionals at their trade. And that level of, for me, that's the baseline. That's the starting point. We're not even getting into the deeper analytics. We're not even talking about strokes gained, nothing. We're just talking about, do you keep track of how many 3-putts you have around? How many greens you, I mean, it's
And
like,
here's the other thing
come
on, this,
on.
on,
Yeah,
the,
I
on the
agree.
scorecards on tour. You actually do you still have stats?
You
stats
do.
at the
I mean,
bottom?
it's, and I'd say those are like, it's the bare minimum. Like
Okay.
you're supposed to do it. You get fined if you don't do it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So if you're not keeping your stats and it's on your scorecard,
Yeah, but I mean, that for me is like, I mean, it's greens and reg. Like you need to go a bit deeper than that. There's far more to what's going on than just how many greens you're hitting in a round.
there's
right?
no fairways.
There's no. I mean, there is fairways hit, but now you can't tell me how close you're hitting it from the rough, what your proximity is. You can't tell me how many putts you have inside of 8 feet for birdie. You have no idea. It's just, I mean, those are. It's the tour just doing what they need to do to have some type of stats for the tour. That's not good enough for an individual, in my opinion. So
You look online, and I know there's a fun side to you, but you look like quite a serious guy. And I must be honest, you sitting down here reiterates that. I can definitely see the softer side of you, but you look like quite a serious guy. What is your fun moments, and what is something you enjoy on the tour? And is there a lot of laughter and enjoyment on the tour?
there's plenty. There's plenty of laughter and plenty of enjoyment. I think that when we're playing practice rounds, we have a really nice time.
Oh, is it?
Depending on who you're playing with. So
Yeah.
I like to play with Nikhil Rama. He's my good buddy. Luca Filippi, Keelan Van Wyk, guys who I've
Oh, I
grown
love
up
Luca
with.
as well, yeah.
You know, guys who I've played a lot of golf with as juniors. And we have so much banter and we have so much fun because Monday of a practice round, you've got, at Dimension Data, you're playing 3 practice rounds. But the Monday, we've seen the golf courses before, so it's not the first time you've seen the course. Like, there's no real intense work that needs to be done. It's managing your lines off the tee, small adjustments with your caddy. On your walk from the tee box to the fairway, you can have a fat chat. You can have a good laugh, you know? And then we have some lovely dinners too. We have some good times, especially when we've got when we've played in the morning and we've got an afternoon tee off time the next day. You can sit down and just have a nice conversation, you know? I'm a big Arsenal fan, so that's part of what I do during the week is I'll sit down and watch the game, and you know there'll be other guys who are Man United fans, Chelsea fans, whatever, and there's a lot of banter, and it's a nice time. It's good when it's important to take that time away from the game, you know, because this is a very serious sport, as we've had the conversation now, and if your mental capacity, if Theo Bezadino, who I work with, one of the things he challenged me this year is to close the tap on golf when I'm off the golf course.
Okay.
I'm not good at that. I like to be able to think about it and whatever. And he said, use that extra mental energy at the end of the season when you're feeling a bit tired and you've got that extra little bit in the tank because you've kept all the water in the tap, you know? So
Well, at
Yeah.
least with Arsenal playing great now, you can turn off the tap. But in the past seasons, you didn't have much to watch. So I'll leave it at that.
So I absolutely adore Arsenal. Not a lot of people know this. I keep it to myself quite a lot, but I listen to all the analysis, all the podcasts. Like, actually, interestingly enough, a lot of like the stats side to the golf game was influenced from my understanding of football. Like the expected goals metrics, the progressive passes, the field tilt, all the stuff that not a lot of soccer fans are actually paying attention to. Once I started listening to those podcasts, I'm like, dude, there's a game inside of this game. Like,
yeah.
there's so much more. The tactics, the positioning of the players, whatever. There's so much more that's going on, and I love it because I knew nothing about it maybe 2 to 3 years ago, and now
Yes.
I've just got like this influx of information. It's so much fun. I have a lot of fun with it.
Listen, Dylan, but you do know what drives a lot of those stats, huh? It's the
What?
betting that
Yeah.
goes If it wasn't for betting in football, I don't think you would have seen 10% of the stats today.
100%.
But they bet on they bet on everything. Everything, even how's the guy going to come running out of the stadium? And I'm like, okay, he's going to take 124 steps. Okay,
They'll
but bet on
probably
that.
Bet on celebration. Is Rashford going to?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I mean, when you look at some of the teams that compete, right, in soccer, you've got teams with financial might that are
Just
it's
unbelievable.
impossible.
It's impossible.
It should be impossible to compete with
Yeah,
them, right?
yeah.
But how smaller teams like Brentford, Brighton, how they're able to compete is by being a better club, by understanding the structures, by having really unbelievable recruiting, by selling when they need to sell. You can I
chat.
can
Yeah.
go crazy with this, but
Well,
I'd
I'd like you, and I don't want to change you into the serious side because I mean I can clearly see some passion for the soccer coming through here. But the Super League with the elites trying to take the game, and Arsenal was part of that.
Part of it, 100%.
They were definitely part of it, and I never realized how much American ownership is now influencing soccer. Must be honest, that was way over my radar. Didn't realize any of that.
10 of the 20 teams are American owned. So.
And obviously they come with a different set of money. And now obviously the Saudi team that's come in there, or the Saudi backed money, has just come to say, good morning. I'll match you for every 100 million you put in. I'll put in 500 million.
Yeah.
But what was your thoughts on the Super League trying to take over and making it a more of an elite sport? I mean, I think I'm summarizing it.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting play, right? It was a political play, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
The situation is now at the moment you have leagues around Europe that are slightly crumbling. You have Serie A that has essentially 3 teams, and the rest are in financial ruins because of COVID. You have La Liga with the 2 biggest teams, Barcelona being one of them, who are in billions in debt. Billions. I'll be surprised if Barcelona exists in 20 years' time. I know that's a crazy thing to think, but it's the truth. And you have the Premier League with basically the lion's share of all the money, right?
Correct. People think FIFA is bigger, but it's not.
No.
I mean, I think it's 4 or 5 times bigger than FIFA's income a year.
The Premier League. I mean, it's monumental. So what's going to happen, because people don't want the Super League, and understandably so, I feel like they needed to be a bit smarter with how they brought it forward.
I think so too.
It was not a clever.
Sometimes the way you say it also matters.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So you're going to end up with a situation where the English Premier League is the Super League. And you're seeing it in the transfer spend anyway. I mean, someone like Nottingham Forest, who just came up, they have that parachute payment or that balloon payment that they've had. And they can spend like a big club anyway. They can't quite attract the talent that they would previously. But I mean, they just got a keeper from, I think it's from PSG. I mean, in previous years, that wasn't happening. That situation wasn't possible. But now, I think we're going to run into a position where the Super League is the Premier League just by name. Like, that's just the situation we're in. And that's probably even worse for soccer as a whole anyway. So I don't know if the Super League is the answer. I don't know. I just don't think the current model is going to continue the way it is forever. It's just not sustainable. You have clubs that are more interested in sports washing than they are in actually having a balanced budget at the end of the day. So I don't have a good opinion on this because I'm a golfer, but that's my thoughts.
So to add to that, difference between Super League and Live Tour?
I was going to say, with some interruptions in the last little bit, Arthur, good point. I was literally just going to ask that.
I think that the monopoly that the PGA Tour holds, if you look at it in any other business model, would have been terrifying, right? I don't think normal businesses can operate like that, right? I don't think you're allowed to have that type of monopoly over a market. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward, especially with all the litigation flying around. I'm curious to see what happens with that. Um, as a golfer, the PGA Tour is always the goal. And I think because they have they have a massive advantage in the monopoly that they hold, not only over the golf, over the rankings boards. America is kind of a complete majority. I think it's 5 out of the 6 names on the committee are USGA, PGA, the PGA Tour, the Masters, the US Open. All the organizations are basically American.
Yeah,
So
with
they're
all the
going to vote
history.
together, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why would they not? They want the interest of the PGA Tour. They hold the interest of the PGA Tour. It's very clear that they hold those higher than they would any other incoming tour. Yeah, and I think that the current ranking system is just it's not acceptable to have competition as high as it is on Live, with players who have, I mean, you have multiple, maybe 10, 15 players who were at the start of the Live events in the top 100 in the world. I saw that DeChambeau just dropped out of the top 100. Dustin Johnson just dropped out of the top 50. I mean, it's a farce.
And then
right?
you've got major tour winners, major winners on the Live Tour that's got massive credibility.
Yeah.
And they stuck.
Yeah, I mean, and you get someone like Patrick Reed, who's now playing European Tour events and Asian Tour events just to try and keep his ranking so he can play in the Masters next year. Well, he's a Masters winner, so probably for the US Open, and the other majors, right? But I just think that the current, in the same way that I just don't see a solution in the current system in soccer. The governing bodies need to get together and sort this out, because it just can't keep going like this. You can't have the PGA Tour saying, no, we don't want to see you, we don't want to hear from you, the Live, and just continuing to let players. I mean, there's going to be more and more players who go. That's the truth, right? There's no doubt about that. You've got guys like Mito Pereira, Joaquin, who's, I mean, phenomenal golfers, young golfers, who said it's the equivalent to going to PSG or going to a big club in the Premier League, who said, why must I continue to do this when I can just get 10 times the amount of money and continue to play golf? I'm still playing golf. It's not like I have to do something else. I'm not like a Anthony Kim situation where I can't play anymore. I'm still playing. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. I'm probably going to get into the majors for the next few years anyway. Or Cameron Smith, I don't know. I'm maybe being a bit more controversial than I should be, but that's how I feel about it. So
did you see what Anthony Kim's old caddy said to him?
I saw that, but there's been news about like it's fake news and he's not. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
That would have been super interesting.
Yeah,
because they said, why don't you go to Live? Because he had a injury, and part of his clause was
he had a surgery that was done on him.
Yeah,
and they messed up the surgery. And so he got the insurance money because of that.
Yeah.
And so obviously, if you play again now, you're going to lose out
the
on
insurance
money.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also, I hope that they've all learned a lesson. I'm not speaking from any qualified position, but if you go back to the world's largest and biggest, most influenced leaders, I felt leadership was lacking. And the other part of it is, it's how you say it and how you come across. I think if they embraced each other a lot more, I think a lot of this rivalries would have stopped, because it felt like it drilled down to the players. And at the end of the day, we all just want the game of golf to grow. And there's no doubt about it that they shifted some of the shiftment. There is absolutely, you cannot argue with the fact that the PGA stepped it up. No doubt about that. And my question is, if it wasn't for that disruption, would the step up have already been there today or not? So then if you put that into hindsight, I'm just saying there was a much better way of handling all of this. And I say on both sides, I'm not even taking a position on any one of them. But to me, take the leadership from Nelson Mandela, which is obviously, a lot of people reference him in a lot of things, but he's one of the, look at how he did the transformation. Look at how he crossed over that leadership. And for me, Sia is also the same thing. There was criticism for Sia right in the beginning. There was definitely fights between mates and people, But look at CA, he just bogged down, did his work, stayed true to what he and who he was. And today, he's one of the biggest inspirations for anybody. And the world has embraced him in that way as well.
I hear you. I think when I look at the PGA Tour and how they've handled Live, right? If you go down to something like their Q School entry fees, right, for the Corn Ferry, in the year that I played, which was 2021, it was $3,500, I believe, right? Then in 1 year's time, they increased that amount to $5,000.
Sure.
Okay. And I remember saying at the time, I remember a lot of friends being like, "Oh, that's a $3,500. That's a lot of dollars to pay." And I was like, they could charge double, and the same group of players would play because it's the pathway to the biggest tour in the world, right? And it's the only show in town, right? So this monopoly that they held over golf, I don't think it was healthy. I think it was something that we just accepted because there was no other option. But having said that, I would still watch a big golf tournament where Rory and Spieth were competing if it was the John Deere Classic. I will watch because it's Rory and Spieth. So if you think about it from that perspective, the players really make the tour. The players are the product.
Yeah.
The tour just has to guide them and make sure that they're happy to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you think of a Ryder Cup format between Live and the PGA Tour?
See, that's people are mentioning a few of that.
I hate it. I really hate it. I feel like that is just pure marketing. Like I feel like that's just like
It's like a WWE event.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel.
That's how I feel about it.
I felt like that's just such a warped understanding because Jay Monahan, in his first address about Live, he came out and spoke about 9/11 victims.
Yeah.
Okay. I felt like that was wrong. I felt like that was extremely wrong. That group of people, first of all, there are no true links between the two for pure, like, from a news perspective. That's not true. Second of all, now you're going from literally talking about the deaths of families in 9/11 to going, oh yeah, we'll just do this for commercial rights. We'll play Live against the PGA Tour. I mean, it didn't add up to me. It felt really wrong that you'd have a group that was so against another group, and now they're going, okay, yeah, for media purposes, let's do it. And honestly, it's possible that it will happen, which is the sad thing. That's I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
It definitely looks like it's on the cards.
Yeah.
And hear me out now. I'm not even relating you, but I really, because I know when Dylan Fatelli mentioned it, when he spoke about intelligence, he wasn't speaking about I'm better than you are.
No.
But I see that intelligence in you so clearly, Dylan.
I appreciate it.
And what an ambassador for South Africa and the movement that you are currently creating. And we really want to just encourage you to keep pushing that because, and I'm sorry that I'm going back to Dr. Suleiman, but I feel if you look at the largest organizations, the most successful people in the world, they were for the human race. It's what needs to be done. My value system. It's got nothing to do with, okay, who do you pray to? What do you look like? Are you good looking? Are you bad looking? Are you fat? Or are you what? No judgment. Those are the most successful, most followed, and that moves the needle, that inspires people to change. And not just to, oh, that's nice. It literally, it inspires you, and the next morning you take the action on that particular change. And then in a couple of weeks and months, it becomes another habit for you. And I feel that you just have that exact same formula. You incredibly calculated, I think, in what you do around the golf side, but it's also what you take in, whether it be reading or listening to whoever you might be listening to. And that's really inspirational to me, Dylan. You are far older or far more wiser than what you should be at the age that you are. And I can now see, when we spoke about the player, you being on the players committee, I personally would want to see you lead that, even at a young age, because I take nothing away from some of the great personalities and great achievements that some of the guys on the Sunshine Tour has had. But I also want to say, and I just think it's time that we all level up. We forget anybody particular, the Sunshine Tour, the players, all of us need to stand up. Because there's one thing about South Africa. If you go back to our rugby, if you go back to what used to be our cricket, I won't say currently in its form, but there was never, the talent was always there, but it was something about South Africa, something that they fought for, which was bigger than themselves, bigger than their individual game, bigger than the great pass that I did. Like you say, there's 2,000 passes in the game. Who cares about that one nice pass that you personally feel proud of?
Yeah.
it was the bigger, we were always fighting for something bigger, you know, and that what makes, look at the impact we do have. And then sport, I know it plays a role around the world, but for South Africa, it plays a different role.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about looking and switching on the TV. That heart beats differently, you know, and when our nation comes together, and Dylan, so I really want you to keep on that. You know, I'm a little bit older than you are. I don't have your sport credibility in any shape or form. But I also just want to give your dad a shout out. You know, he's incredibly passionate about you as well. He does really, really good for the game of golf. And he's also a good leadership in his own world, you know, in what he does. Your dad always, with so much love, always approaches. You know what I realized also? Your dad has been here a few times. Your dad also greets everybody. It doesn't matter what you look like, what car you drive, or, you know, if he comes in this office, everybody gets a greet. And I always say to him that definitely you can see that in Dylan.
Yeah, I think my seat is up for grabs at the moment. So I hope you play better golf in the next couple of tournaments. And my seat stays here at the moment. No, I'm just teasing. But listen, dude, I think you're a really, really good role model. I think you've got a very good head on your shoulders. You actually remind me a lot of Dylan Fratelli.
I keep
It's
wanting to say it, but I don't want to make the direct.
Well, listen, Dylan. It's the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
So, but dude, I think you're on a really, really good pathway to great things. I think just carry on doing you, being you, push forward. And I know the PGA Tour or the Live Tour must watch out for Dylan Naidoo. I'm just teasing, but yeah, it was super cool to have you today.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Dylan, it's such a pleasure. And if you don't mind, I just want to, if you don't mind, just from your side, just go take us quickly through your sponsorships, because those people are, we highlight them here, Dylan, not because they need to highlight, but the reason because it's not easy to get sponsorships. It's a challenging capacity. There's not always a return of investment. So it comes down to relationships. So your sponsorships and the people that you surround you with, just take us through that quickly.
So I've been really fortunate with the people I'm surrounded with. So Dr. Kinesh Patha and his team at Tico Africa Group have been just so great for me. You know, national security has come on board. They've been great. GCC and Sidel Asset Management have been just such a great group of companies to help me do what I'm trying to do. And I think they understand that it's not just local. Like this is what I want to do on an international stage. You know, I want to be able to perform all around the world, and that takes a lot of financial power to do that. You know, and then Under Armour as well, who've come on board, and Titleist, who have helped me with ball, shoe and glove for a long time, and recently Callaway as well, who've come on board. So it's been a really nice group of people who I've surrounded myself with, and I'm really, really fortunate.
Take the time to listen to what Dylan said here. And if you even took the time that we just did an association with Dylan Fratelli's episode, I mean, I'm telling you now, when me and him leave, there's one thing me and him will say is that for me, you fall under the level on some of the big names we've had on here. And I'm not taking away from you've still got a lot to achieve, and that's a personal goal for you. But the way that you carry yourself, Dylan, the way that you speak, the ball you're about to sign for me, I can't wait for that ball to be worth so much money. And you were going to sign one ball, you're now going to sign lots more. So thank you for all the sponsors that's with you, and for everybody that's always supporting us here. And Dylan, thank you for this absolute inspirational hour and 15 minutes with you this morning. We bless your journey, bud.
Thank
and
you so
everybody that's behind you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
On the next episode of the Human Golf Show.
When I turned pro, you know, I played a bit, but never really enjoyed it. Didn't enjoy the traveling. Whether I played well or not so well, I kind of felt the same way.